This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hi, I'm Gino, Odjick.
Right in front again, score!
Remembering Gino, Odjick, one of Vancouver's most loved hockey players, dead at 52.
Hopefully we'll get some more snow before the end of the season.
Hoping for snow. A shabby snowpack on the North Shore Mountains is forcing closures.
It's a dangerous move because it's still not talking about the fact that youth use drugs.
Young people left out. Why critics say forthcoming drug decriminalization policies don't go far enough.
Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. Hockey fans across the country are mourning the death of one of the Vancouver Canucks' most popular players ever. Gino Odjick played 8 seasons here in Vancouver, and the enforcer left his mark on more than just his opponents. Odjick, who was Algonquin from Quebec, dedicated himself to giving back. As Chad Pawson reports, fans still chanted his name long after his playing career was over.
Gino! 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 Gino!
The refrain defined how fans appreciated Gino Odjick, a hockey enforcer known for his fierce play and a willingness to stand up for teammates like Stan Schmiel.
He took that role, he took it proud, and he just wanted to win as a Canuck.
Hurry, going in! He scores!
The heart and soul he played with helped get the Canucks to the '94 Stanley Cup Finals, but the team couldn't quite pull it off, losing to the New York Rangers in 7 games. After retiring from hockey in 2002, Odjick continued to make time for fans.
What's your name?
Danielle.
Throughout his career, he was an ambassador and a role model for other Indigenous players. In the '95 off-season, he trekked from Calgary to Vancouver through 20 Indigenous communities, all to raise awareness of the dangers of alcohol and drugs.
I believed from the start it would make a difference what we were doing. And, I couldn't speak about it for 5 years because I was drinking myself, and that's the best way I knew how to make up for lost time.
His biggest fight, though, was off the ice. In 2014, he was diagnosed with a rare terminal illness and given just weeks to live. He wrote an open letter to fans thanking them and then told them in person when they showed up to the hospital to chant his name again.
I wanted to say thank you. I can't stay too long because I gotta get some medication and stuff, but I really appreciate you guys coming out.
Appreciate you, Gino.
Thank you,
Gino.
Okay.
But Odjick lived on.
Fighter, through and through. That's who he is. That's who he was.
His close friend, Marcia McNaughton, says his death over the weekend was a surprise. She was to attend a Canucks home game with him this week. She says Odjick would want people to celebrate his life, his kindness, humor, and resiliency.
He made it longer than probably he was supposed to, and he kicked ass while doing it.
Gino Odjick was 52. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Despite heavy snowfall earlier this winter, the local mountains are barer than usual. Numerous ski hills are closed due to lack of snow. But as Yasmin Gandam reports, ski operators are still hopeful about the season ahead.
They need snow big time.
It might look like a normal Sunday ski day on Cypress Mountain, but there is considerably less snow on the hills. According to the latest snowpack bulletin from the BC River Forecast Center, the snowpack on the south coast is only 70% of normal and down 36% from last year. This has skiers and boarders a little uneasy.
Well, we're concerned about it for sure, but we came up from Seattle, which we had the atmospheric river, so it was raining like crazy there. So this actually, we skied yesterday and today.
We've definitely been experiencing such different weather, but I'm hopeful that, we still have a lot of people here, and we're gonna try to go snowshoeing, and hopefully we'll get some more snow before the end of the season.
At Cypress, 2 ski lifts remain closed along with nearly all of the Black Diamond runs. Mount Seymour has received the most snowfall this season with 320 centimeters so far, while Grouse only collected 265 centimeters this season. An environmental expert says the unusual weather this year has contributed to the lack of snowfall on the mountains.
We've kind of been plagued by periods of quite cold and dry weather, and then warm and quite mild weather. So our mountains, especially the lower elevation mountains around Metro Vancouver and even Vancouver Island, they've seen a lot of periods where there's been no precipitation or rain that goes up to the mountaintop.
But Marshall remains optimistic that conditions will improve due to the La Nina climate pattern, which brings colder temperatures and more snow.
And often the effects of La Nina aren't really seen until January and later into the winter. So for those that are looking to get out in the mountains, I suggest just being patient, and things could turn around here pretty quickly in the next few weeks.
More snowfall is expected in the coming week, and hopefully that will get skiers and boarders back on the hills sooner rather than later. Yasmin Kandim, CBC News, Vancouver.
Harm reduction advocates are concerned an upcoming pilot to decriminalize possession of small amounts of illicit drugs in BC doesn't go far enough. The new policy that comes into effect at the end of this month excludes anyone under the age of 18. And as Janelle Hamilton reports, it could mean increased risks for vulnerable youth.
Collie Sedgemore has been using drugs most of their life.
A lot of youth do start at a young age, and sometimes that's 11, sometimes that's 12.
Now a peer worker and youth harm reduction advocate, Sedgemore says addictions has no boundaries, and policies surrounding drug use should reflect that.
Age restrictions are really harmful in a sense because they do ostracize people from different things.
Under Health Canada's new drug exemption policy coming into effect January 31st, if you're caught with small amounts of illicit drugs, you won't face criminal charges, only if you're 18 years or older.
It's a dangerous move because it's still not talking about the fact that youth use drugs. It's not bringing that conversation forward.
Sedgemore believes excluding youth is a missed opportunity.
We do see a lot of youth, but it's like they are still very hidden.
Health Canada says anyone under the age of 18 would be subject to the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which encourages diversion from the formal criminal justice system where appropriate.
Youth are often excluded from our most progressive harm reduction and drug policy approaches. That exclusion is rooted in deep fears around what will happen if we acknowledge that very young people use drugs and we start working with them not from an abstinence promoting standpoint, but from a harm reduction standpoint.
The Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction says they are doubling youth substance use treatment beds and are funding a historic expansion of youth mental health and substance use care. But FAST says the province needs to stop prioritizing treatment over a safe supply of drugs.
It just really drives home the need for that space where young people can enter and open up conversations on their own terms.
Health Canada did not provide a specific reason as to why youth are excluded from the decriminalization policy, but say they will monitor and evaluate the impact. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And a pricey lesson for a Vancouver tenant tonight. A BC Supreme Court judge is ordering her to pay nearly $570,000 in damages to her landlord after a fire broke out in her suite and she was found negligent.
The judgment says clearly that both the law of negligence and the terms of a tenancy agreement can be used to bind a tenant to their promises and say that they're responsible for the costs of the damages that they cause, both through their actions and through their neglect or their negligence.
Angela Chu was a tenant at Langara Gardens on Vancouver's west side when the fire broke out in 2017. A BC Supreme Court judge cited the, quote, near hoarding state in her apartment. The fire is believed to have been caused by a box or a pillowcase sitting too close to a halogen lamp. Well, just ahead of Lunar New Year, a new exhibit was unveiled at the Chinatown Storytelling Center. The exhibit, Raised in Chinatown, explores Chinese-Canadian youth culture in Vancouver, and it kicked off tonight.
The special lobby exhibit that we're having tonight is a complimentary story about the kids, the young people who grew up in Chinatown, and their courageousness, their creativity in breaking down barriers, really, to set up clubs, to join in parades, extracurricular activities, at a time when discrimination was quite intense.
Done in collaboration with students from Langara College, it features rare archival photographs and artifacts from the 1910s to the 60s that capture the vibrant activities of the early Chinese-Canadian youth.
This is a place where people were relegated. I mean, this was really, if you think about it, in some ways it was a ghetto, and the early pioneers, they were not wanted in other parts of Vancouver, so they settled here. And the life in Saltwater City, that was the name that Vancouver called it, that was called by the early Chinese settlers. The parents worked hard, but the responsibility of forging the new identity fell to the children.
19 Langara students helped design and fabricate the exhibit. City Council is set to vote on a new action plan to help clean up Chinatown. If the initiatives in the report are approved, it could mean an increase in property tax.
Over the last few years, they keep raising it up, and people, they have to close their business and move out to Surrey or somewhere else because everything is too high here.
It would really depend on what the change is going to entail. But I mean, the tax is already high as it is, so what's another percent at this point?
The proposed action plan includes a new city office in the neighborhood, as well as more street cleaning and graffiti removal, and a 24/7 public washroom at the intersection of Main and Hastings Street. City staff are recommending that an additional $2.1 million be included in the upcoming city budget. If approved, it could mean an additional 0.2% property tax, or funding would have to be reallocated from elsewhere. Well, loiterers and parents, be warned. If you don't want to hear the popular kids song Baby Shark on loop for hours, you'll want to stay away from the entrance of a Nanaimo clothing shop. The store owner says he's using the song as a safety device. But as Claire Palmer reports, advocates for homeless residents say it's not the solution.
It's cute, it's catchy, it's annoying. And you can hear it every day from 6 p.m. until 10 a.m. outside NYLA Fresh Threads. The owner is using it as deterrence technique.
I'm a huge downtown Nanaimo advocate. I just wanted us to do something that was really fun and positive. I know I see other people doing things that are quite negative, and us, this was just a really easy, cheap and easy way to do it, where it's not going to harm anybody.
Jowiecki says he decided to take action after his store saw a 200% increase in theft in recent weeks. The tactic was first popularized in the mid-'80s. Managers of 7-Eleven stores in BC started to play classical music to deter teenage loiterers. Jowiecki says the tactic is not an attack on the homeless. He says the overnight camping is not the problem, but the vandalism.
Doing my part as a business owner to try to keep, my staff are safe and happy and feeling safe to come to work. I've had staff actually quit the store because they don't feel safe working downtown.
In recent weeks, he and his staff have cleaned up garbage, drug paraphernalia, and even fecal matter. However, some advocates say it's not a solution.
Personally, I think it is a little bit taunting. However, the attention that is being brought surrounding the business is bringing the dire need for more resources and shelter space to light.
Employees say they also have empathy for the unhoused. However, it had become a safety issue.
So what we're trying to do is just promote a positive message of you're welcome here, but please don't leave your garbage. You're welcome in Nanaimo. It's just don't leave all this paraphernalia.
Since implementing the song last week, Jowiecki feels things have improved. He says there's been no campers, garbage cleanup, or overnight fires. That means the music will keep playing, at least for now. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
The Vancouver Symphony Orchestra held a concert at the Orpheum this afternoon to remember its longest-serving music director, Maestro Bramwell Tovey. His close friends gathered to celebrate his life, music, and legacy.
It's a special moment today to say goodbye with a lot of other people to someone who was a friend and a truly great man of music, both here in Canada and around the world, made a great impact. And it's nice today to be together and recognize the legacy of Maestro Bramwell Tovey.
Tovey, who died last year, led the VSO for 18 years and made a significant contribution to music in Canada. The concert featured many musicians who worked with Tovey over the years. Nathan Rourke, BC Lions star quarterback, will be heading to the NFL next season. He announced today he will be signing up with Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the 12 NFL teams that he met with, and fans have mixed reactions.
It's bittersweet because, I can understand some of the fans and their concerns of losing a player, but you have to, as a human being, as, someone that wants to see someone do better, you got to be genuinely happy for them.
Rourke still has a year left on his CFL deal, but was eligible to sign a future deal south of the border. No details on the contract have been made public yet. Nepal's deadliest airplane accident in 3 decades. At least 68 people are dead, and rescuers are losing hope of finding anyone else alive. That story next. At least 68 people are dead after a plane crash in Nepal, and rescuers are losing hope of finding anyone alive. The plane was on its way from the capital, Kathmandu, to a resort town in central Nepal when it went down. Lisa Shing has more.
A devastating discovery for those first on scene. The charred wreckage of a plane and remains of dozens of passengers. A rescue effort quickly became a recovery mission. We heard what sounded like loud thunder, says this resident. We rushed to the site. My friend went down to look for survivors and took out at least 35 bodies. This unverified video shared on social media appears to show the last moments before the crash. A low-flying plane suddenly turning on its side before going out of view. The Yeti Airlines flight was about to land in the resort town of Pokhara, a half-hour flight from Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. There were 72 passengers and crew on board, including some from India, Russia, and South Korea, among other countries. But most were Nepalese residents, their loved ones waiting outside hospitals for news. The incident was tragic, said Nepal's prime minister. All forces have been deployed for rescue operations. This crash, Nepal's deadliest in decades, and there have been many, 42 since 1946. Last year, 22 people died when a plane crashed on a mountainside after taking off from Pokhara.
Nepal is one of the most challenging areas in the world in which to fly.
Nepal has 8 of the world's highest mountains, including Mount Everest. The topography means the weather changes suddenly, making for hazardous conditions.
You have things such as wind shear. You have things such as obscurations of airports and mountains.
For the last decade, the European Union has also banned all Nepalese airlines from its airspace because of safety concerns. The planes are old and the country lacks infrastructure for accurate weather forecasts. But right now, a more immediate concern, finding the cause of this tragedy. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
The number of casualties continues to rise from Russia's biggest single strike of the new year on Ukrainian civilians. Officials now say at least 30 people died when a missile smashed into an apartment building in a central city yesterday. Over 40 others are still missing. Our Chris Brown is there.
How could anyone still be alive under all this? More than 24 hours after the missile hit and a night and day of freezing temperatures, this is now more a recovery operation than a rescue. And yet, crews continue to put themselves in precarious positions as those watching cling to slim hope. Ola told us she can't find her friends. I don't know where they are, but I'm waiting, she said. Initially, there was hope there might be pockets of life in the debris. Workers would periodically silence their equipment, listening for cries for help, and then push onward. One woman was pulled out after 18 hours buried, but she may be the last. Ukraine's defense ministry said what did this was a missile fired from a Russian heavy bomber that was designed to sink NATO warships. And Russia has used it to hit civilian targets before. CCTV captured the power of a similar missile slamming into a shopping mall in Kremenchuk in the summer, which killed 20. Dnipro's mayor says he believes the Russians were aiming at a thermal generating station several kilometers away, but the notoriously inaccurate missile missed. The horrific consequences of that were visible when our CBC crew was permitted to visit a Dnipro intensive care ward. It's hard when patients wake up and realize they're alone, this doctor told us, that their children, husband, wife, or parents are buried under the debris. We also met Odjick, who was in a 4th-floor apartment when the missile hit. The hospital asked us to protect patients' privacy. He says his entire body was pierced by flying glass. I wanted to talk to you, he told us, because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is a world leader who has mobilized support for our country, and I don't want world support for Ukraine to weaken. Russia has been targeting Ukraine's electrical grid, and even though this missile did not hit any of those targets, many others have. And that means many people in Dnipro tonight are cold in their homes without heat or electricity. Chris Brown, CBC News, Dnipro.
And there's a live shot of Harbour Centre here in downtown Vancouver on another misty night. We're looking at a wet start to the week. I'll have your full forecast after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Ring in the Year of the Rabbit with CBC Vancouver at the annual Chinatown Spring Festival Parade on Sunday, January 22nd. Join us along the parade route and celebrate the Lunar New Year with fun and festivities for the whole family. Enjoy traditional lion and dragon dances, marching bands, and martial arts performances. Learn more at cbc.ca/BC.
Time now to talk weather. Feeling like a pretty normal Vancouver night. Temperatures, though, not so much. It's actually quite a bit warmer than it should be around this time of year. Sitting at 7 degrees at Vancouver Airport. Temperature's not going to drop much more than that as we hit our overnight low of 6, which should be around the freezing mark this time of year. There's your forecast across the province. Dees Lake looking at a -7, a couple of flurries for you. Prince Rupert looking at some showers. 5 degrees will be your high. Prince George looking at some flakes there at the freezing mark. It will be sunny, though, in Williams Lake. Pretty nice at 1 degree. 9 degrees in Victoria, looking at some of that rainfall. And here for us in the South Coast, it's actually going to be rain heavy at times tomorrow, especially in the early morning hours before things do taper off a little bit. 7 degrees will be our high. Tuesday, we're going to continue to see that rainfall, not quite as heavy as it will be Monday. Wednesday, Thursday, get a little bit of a break before we return to the rain on Friday. And here's to hoping that the Lunar New Year parade on Sunday is going to be a nice and sunny one, at least dry. That would be nice. Okay, that does it for us this Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. For news anytime, you can always go to our website. I'll be back here next weekend. Have a good one.